podcast. Today we are honored to have the modern day Renaissance man and owner of Budo Videos, Budo Jake, as our guest. Before we get started, we just need to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Rain Unlimited. If you're looking for high quality, comfortable, and affordable, sleek jiu-jitsu kimonos, rash guards, and lifestyle apparel, then choose Rain Unlimited. Order your kimonos, rash guards, and apparel today at rainunlimited.com, spelled REIGNUNLIMITED.com. Also, Details. Details is a jiu-jitsu athletic apparel company that develops top-of-the-line gear exclusively designed for women who train by women who train. If you're a woman who rolls and you're looking for the perfect rash guard, spats, then definitely check them out at detailsclothing.com. And Details is spelled DETALES clothing.com. And next week, they'll be doing their Black Friday sale where everything is 30% off. And the promo code is hashtag Black Friday. Just one word, hashtag Black Friday. And on our guest, Budo Jake, I just want to do a quick intro for him. I have a great level of respect and admiration for everything he's done for the jiu-jitsu community. He's done a lot to advance and promote jiu-jitsu to the masses through his company, Budo Videos. He's produced the online streams for the top events in the sport, including IBJJF Worlds, PANS, ADCC, and produced hundreds of great instructional videos from the top BJJ minds in the world. He hosts the best martial arts podcast on the internet, is one of the top martial arts retailers and distributors out there as well. Additionally, he's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under the Gracie Baja banner, and a true Renaissance man. Thank you for joining us, Jake.
Thanks for having me on, Jerry.
Yeah, and just everybody knows about Budo Videos, and about Budo Jake, but some people don't know about your background. What was your life like before Budo Videos?
Well, I grew up, I moved around quite a bit as a kid. I lived in, I think, 5 different states. So that made me not feeling a big sense of home, but on the other hand, I feel comfortable wherever I am. So I moved to California when I was about 10 years old, spent the next 15 years in California, and then I moved to Japan where I stayed for 3 years. And ever since I was 13 years old, I've been training martial arts. So now almost 30 years training martial arts. Most of my time was spent in Aikido and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And but you asked before Budo Videos, there wasn't a whole lot. Well, before Budo Videos, I was a college student, and then, like I said, moved to Japan, taught English there for 3 years. And as soon as I came back to California, that's when I started the company along with Budo Dave.
And what made you decide to move to Japan? Since you were studying Aikido, were you just influenced by the Japanese culture? Was it an interest in anything else other than just exploring Asia? What was your motivation?
Yeah, pretty much all those things you mentioned. I can't pinpoint the beginning of my interest in Asia, but whereas a lot of my friends always wanted to travel to Europe, I was always more interested in Asia. And whenever I think about a vacation, it's always revolves around going back to Japan or to Thailand or Vietnam. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by the culture, the food, the people, the martial arts, all that stuff.
And how long did you spend in Japan?
I was there for 3 years.
3 years. And what was your biggest takeaway from your experience there, from just living there, whether it be the culture or the martial arts?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is when I was growing up, my dad always told me that I was so lucky to be born in America. So my perception was that if I was lucky being born in America, then that means everybody else must be unlucky. And traveling really shows you that that's not the only paradigm. There's a lot of happy people all around the world, and surprisingly, more often than not, the people that have less seem to be happier than the people that have more. So those are kind of some things that I took away from my travels and living abroad.
What was the biggest cultural shock? Because you see a lot of times that you almost, whether it be, because from my experience working in operations management, the Kanban system, the sense of team in the Japanese culture, and also community during the Fukushima and the tsunamis there, you saw everybody come together. Were there any big cultural takeaways that you really learned from living there?
As unbelievable as it may sound, I didn't feel much of a culture shock moving to Japan. I did have a homestay there when I was a high school student, so I knew what I was in for. But maybe surprisingly, I felt more of a reverse culture shock when I moved back to America.
In what way did you feel a reverse culture shock?
Well, the cultures are very different. Japan has what's called a collective culture where people strive to have harmony with other people and try to fit in and make sure that nobody feels out of place. Whereas in America, it's more about being an individual and standing out. So those are such different qualities. In Japan, life is so comfortable and easy, and customer service is off the charts. It's just so easy and comfortable. And in America, it's I think life is a little more complex. You got to fight, and you got to you got to fight for what's yours, and that's not the way I felt in Japan.
You ever think you'll move back there after you retire, or are you a lifelong U.S. guy from here on in?
No, that's certainly a possibility. It's something I think about a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it might come sooner rather than later, like when you're in your older years, or is it something like, man, you occasionally daydream where I'd rather be in Tokyo or in this part of Japan right now than in the U.S.?
Yeah, who knows? I wouldn't be opposed to it happening sooner than later, but
Yeah.
always those little details you have to work out, how to operate the business from abroad and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure when it'll happen, but I could definitely imagine it happening.
And when you returned to the U.S., that's when you started Budo Video?
That's right, exactly.
And originally did it start off with jiu-jitsu, or was it more Aikido focused or other traditional martial arts focused?
So that was 2003, and the market was very different. Even though UFC had started 10 years earlier, you might recall that there was a big black period where nobody was able to watch UFC anymore. It's kind of blacklisted. And so people knew what jiu-jitsu was, but Gracie Baja hadn't moved here. They moved here in 2005, and they were one of the big the organizations that really grew jiu-jitsu in America. And also IBJJF didn't move here until 2008 or 2007. So there was not much going on in terms of jiu-jitsu. There was very little jiu-jitsu media. So for the most part, the media that we were selling back then was traditional martial arts stuff. It was really one of the biggest changes that we saw was when The Ultimate Fighter got on TV. That's when MMA really blew up in America, and we were selling all the UFC and Pride DVDs back then.
Mm-hmm. And we see Budo Videos right now as an instructionals retailer. You guys sell apparel and equipment, and you also have your broadcast streams for many jiu-jitsu and grappling events. What was Budo Videos when you started in 2003?
Our original idea was to create our original content. Of course, live streaming was not an option back then. But, the internet was a very different place. It was hard to sell your own creations back then. So we knew we had to become a distributor first to kind of develop that supply chain, and then we could create our own products. So we were importing mostly media from Japan. Believe it or not, in 2003, there was 0 martial arts instructional DVDs in America. They were only in Japan, so we were importing all those things. And then once we started getting a good-sized customer base, then we started making our own instructionals.
And when did you start building upon it and do your first live stream and start selling the equipment as well? Where did the equipment come with the instructionals?
So our first live stream was the 2007 Nogi Worlds, 2009 Nogi Worlds, excuse me. And yeah, we did it then because that was basically when it was just starting to become possible to do it in an affordable and stable manner. And so, yeah, I believe we are the longest running live broadcaster of martial arts events, having done it since 2009. So we have 6 years of experience. And so, yeah, it was just something that we wanted to do to help spread the art of jiu-jitsu and give to our customer base.
And how complicated was it to set up an online stream and also paywall? And back then, way back when you first did your first Nogi Worlds, and how much was the learning curve for that like back then?
The event went really well. We didn't have commentary, so the audio was a bit easier, but it was definitely a learning experience. Like I said, everything went fine, but we always saw room for improvement. And I think each year we made improvements in terms of video quality and commentary. Of course, Sean Williams has been with us since the beginning, doing amazing commentary. I know you train with him, and I can't speak enough about Sean. He's just so knowledgeable and so good on the mic. So yeah, each year we tried to make little improvements, and one of the big improvements that we developed was the multi-mat technology, where the viewer at home could choose which mat they wanted to watch. So whenever the event producer or association, whoever was putting on the event, whether it be IBJJF or ADCC, whenever they had the budget to allow for that, we would make it available so the viewer could watch any mat that they wanted. And a couple of years we had cranes and to get some nice overhead shots. So basically, we can work within any budget, whether it's large or small, but the product that we provide depends on what the event coordinator has in their budget, or if it's something that we're giving away for free, maybe the budget is not a concern.
Mm-hmm. And who retains the rights of your broadcast? Does it go back to the IBJJF? Is it shared by both you and a promoter or organization? For you to use in the future potentially, and for DVDs or other types of revenue streams? Who owns those rights usually?
It's a case-by-case basis. It's something we always have to discuss before the event. But in terms of IBJJF, they always retain ownership of their events.
Mm-hmm. And just want to segue to that. From now that we know who you are and what your business is, we're seeing thanks to a lot of the work that you and your company have done, is a tremendous amount of growth in jiu-jitsu and opportunities for jiu-jitsu practitioners to earn a living, whether it be through the instructional videos they produce through your promotion of them in your podcast, and also how you highlight them in the events that you promote. Where do you see professional grappling going in 2016?
Well, I think we should take a look back and look back at 2014. To me, 2014 and part of 2015 was the years of tournaments. We saw so many tournaments come up, and some of those names would include Five, and I don't remember all the names. Hegon had a promotion. Hickson talked about a promotion. So all these different groups coming out and building their own tournament series. Rev Gear was another one, and I'm sure there's a couple more I'm forgetting. Mm-hmm. But what we saw was basically a market that was too crowded with tournaments. There wasn't enough people to support all those. So many of those names I mentioned are not doing tournaments anymore. So I think things have kind of settled in that regard. But now, in part of 2015 and 2016, we're seeing tons of, quote, professional jiu-jitsu events, which are more super fight type of events. And I don't know. I don't think there's room for all of them, but certainly some of them will last. Some of the biggest names that we saw in the past, like Metamorphs, we've seen a big drop in terms of their production quality, and I'm not sure what the future may have in place for them. I really don't know. But we're seeing so many events, and some of them are funded in artificial ways. Of course, when you talk about the Abu Dhabi groups and also the Russian groups that's doing events now, they don't need to be profitable. So those events can keep on going for as long as they choose to do it. But to really run a business doing super fight events, it's going to be tough because it's, frankly, a pretty crowded market right now.
And do you see, just from an IBJJF, people going away from the IBJJF, even though it's the most prestigious tournament, because there are other money opportunities out there? For instance, we saw Honolulu Hall set out parts of the IBJJF season in order to prep for ADCC, which is a money tournament.
Well, from my point of view, you have to look at what the IBJJF is providing. They're providing a great platform for people to really make their names. No one's going to be invited to a super fight paid event if you haven't made a name for yourself. And how are you going to make a name without competing at IBJJF events? It's very difficult. So someone like Honolulu Hall, who has tons of world titles already, what does he have to gain by getting yet another title? Not much, and he has a lot to risk. But he has a busy seminar schedule and a successful school, so I would say that he doesn't really need to compete at IBJJF tournaments in terms of prestige anymore. He has the prestige. But there's tons of younger talent that need the IBJJF to build their names. And even so, even the guys that have tons of world titles, it always helps their schools to have more.
Mm-hmm. But you're seeing now some of these events, such as one that you're producing next month. We want to plug the Eddie Bravo Invitationals. Gio Martinez, he seems to have been homegrown through that event. Do you see some of these guys, such as a Gio Martinez, Eddie Cummings, or even a Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan saying, you know what, we don't need the IBJJF. If there's enough of these small regional tournaments and we could work our way up through those ranks to get the attention, that could be a new avenue for these guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. And those are some interesting names that you mentioned. They are ones that have developed their names outside of the IBJJF. And I would say one big reason that they were able to do that is when you look at their games, most of them are more heel hook oriented guys. Gio, not quite as much, but of course he still does heel hooks. So those guys, their games just don't really fit in an IBJJF context where heel hooks are illegal. And in terms of Gio, he has Eddie behind him. Eddie's a master marketer, so that's definitely helped him. And Eddie Cummings, he's gotten a lot of support from Eddie as well, thanks to his participation at the EBI. So you're right, there are other ways to get there, but I would say that's the more difficult road.
And I recently had lunch with a guy that just won Brown Belt No-Gi Worlds, and he told me that, for lack of a better term, I said to him, hey, you don't seem very happy. You just won No-Gi Worlds. And his response was, this title is meaningless, that the IBJJF is fake jiu-jitsu. I can't do heel hooks. Some of the point systems and penalties and reffing is biased, and we went on and on. Do you feel that the rule set to help grow the sport into a fan-friendly, watchable sport is to go that sub-only route that Eddie is going with the EBI, or do you still think that the IBJJF is something that could grow as far as casual fan appeal?
Okay, there's a few different things that you brought up, but in terms of casual fans, I'm not convinced that there are any casual fans of jiu-jitsu. I certainly don't know any. I'd be curious to meet somebody who doesn't train, who is still interested in sitting down and watching any jiu-jitsu event. I haven't found anybody. That being said, if it's going to happen, I think Eddie's the guy to make it happen. That format is an amazing way of making it exciting, making it a way where the viewer gets what they want, which is but expecting somebody to sit down and watch an event with 10 or 12 different mats in a casual manner, I think that's tough. The IBJJF events are great because you can watch your teammates, your coaches, competing, and they're a great way to build the sport in terms of getting a lot of people into the jiu-jitsu market. But in terms of casual fans, they're going to watch an event on a Saturday night. I think Eddie's got that on lockdown right now.
Yeah, I think I should have better phrased it as the casual grappling fan, the guy who trains 2 to 3 times a week. He may not know all the names, but he just enjoys training, but not necessarily watching it. He'll watch his teammates compete, but other than, does he know who Keenan Cornelius is? Will he seek out a Keenan Cornelius match? Maybe, maybe not, but as far as making it watchable and appealing to him, that's how I should better phrased it as the casual grappling fan. Do you think that the sub-only no-gi way is the way to go to attract that type of casual grappling fan?
I do, and I think I think the term sub-only is a bit of a misnomer because a lot of events that call themselves sub-only are not really sub-only because there's still a time limit, and there's some events like the Gracie Worlds where both competitors are disqualified if there's no submission. So, but in terms of the format that Eddie does with the innovative overtime rules, there truly is almost always a submission. Now, if it's an event where it is sub-only and there's no time limit, I don't know. That could end up to be a really long, boring match. We had Gianni Grippo and Joao Miao at the Copa Podio not too long ago, and that match went 45 minutes with no submission, and then the promoters just said, okay, that's enough. So I don't know if no time limit submission only is the way to go. I think Eddie Bravo's way is so far the most interesting format.
And while you are the producer of the show and his online broadcasting partner, do you have a say in any of the rules, where how to make it more fan friendly in terms of production and the rule set that they use?
I have a great relationship with Eddie, and certainly if I had any ideas, I would voice them to him. But I don't think there needs to be any adjustments, to be honest. I think he put a lot of thought into it, and I've watched the last few events. I found them to be very exciting, so nothing to say on that.
Because I do enjoy it, but I wonder if there are a number of competitors that are playing to go the 10 minutes and then really win in an overtime. And we're playing for overtime at some points. If that's plays into strategy as people get more familiar with the rule sets and strategize for it, and how do you and is there an incentive or in-match bonus where if you submit them faster, or if you go for subs that in a certain way you get a higher money bonus, and if you sub on under 5 minutes is we're under 7 minutes to help.
That's a good point, and some people criticize Joe Soto about that. He was a competitor at EBI4, and he wrote out some of the matches. But one important thing to remember is that at EBI, if you don't submit your opponent in the regulation time, which is the first 10 minutes, you don't get paid anything. So if you beat all your opponents, win the whole thing, but never submitted anybody, you're going to get paid zero. So I think Eddie did a great job of aligning what the viewers want, which is a submission, along with what the fighters want, which is money.
Mm-hmm. And also, just along the lines of that, you do see the at EBI. You feel like that tournament format works better than a super fight tournament, or super fight rather, just because a tournament we weren't too familiar with Joe Soto as a grappler. And during the course of the tournament, we got to know him and we got to root for him. He pulled off a few upsets. Does that work better than just a super fight where you just see a few fights and some may go to a draw, whereas with a tournament there's a definitive winner, there's storylines that develop? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's a place for both of them. I do think, like you said, you get to know a fighter after you see him fight a few rounds. I like the super fight format as well, where you get to see a bunch of different guys. But what I don't like is to see a draw. I don't find that to be very fulfilling. I like to see something definite, and that is a submission, and EBI forces that to happen.
And right now you're in a position where you are one of the top content providers in jiu-jitsu. You do have a lot of relationships out there. Have you ever thought about just producing your own events and building your own world champion, or building your own promotion around the network and resources you already have?
A lot of people have asked us to do that, and I've not been interested in that for two reasons. Number one, we work with so many different organizations already that would kind of make me a competitor with them, which I don't want to do. And secondly, it's a whole other business getting involved in tournaments or super fights. And whenever you're running your own business, any of your entrepreneurs know that you have to stay focused. And there's always people trying to pull you in different directions, and it's hard to resist that. But if you can't accomplish anything if you're trying to do too many things at once. So what we're focused on doing is talking to producers of their events and making it look as good as possible with whatever budget they have, and growing jiu-jitsu, and that's what we do in terms of our free shows, whether it's This Week in BJJ or Rolled Up.
Mm-hmm. And right now there's several scattered producers. You have Polaris in Europe. You have Metamoris up the road from you guys in the Torrance, South Bay area. And then there's just a few other promoters as well throughout the United States that put on events. Do we need a governing body that kind of unites all these promoters and makes sure that they share talent? They don't have in a certain way, that they don't also book events on the same date to cannibalize events. Do you see that a need for that, and also just to also have single, unified, recognizable champions that they could all use from or pull from?
Well, in terms of for super fights, no, I don't think we need that. I think it sucks when people try to sabotage each other. So, we're a small niche industry. We don't need that. But I do think it's good how it is right now, where we have basically one governing body for tournaments, and that is basically IBJJF. Everybody agrees when you're talking about the worlds, you're talking about the IBJJF worlds. You're not talking about NABJJF or some of these other events that have events that are called worlds. So, you know, when I think back of the 80s, in the 80s, I enjoyed watching kickboxing. And there were 2 or 3 different kickboxing promotions, and each one of them had their own world champion. And that got to be very confusing, and I think that was one of the big reasons why kickboxing kind of went away in terms of a spectator sport in America, is that nobody knew who the real world champion was. So I think it's good that IBJJF has such a big portion of the market share, whereas everybody respects their events. And you know, a world title, even though it doesn't earn you money directly, it means a lot for the competitor.
And with the different events you've worked with numerous different promoters, do you give them any advice as to what the keys are to run a successful event promotion that's profitable and also attracts the right type of stars to the event?
Absolutely, because like you mentioned, very few people have the broad knowledge that we have, and we know what works and what doesn't. But some guys come to us and they're like, okay, I've got it all worked out. This is what I want to do, and we want you to make it happen. And you know, we'll always give our thoughts in terms of a price on the pay-per-view and how long it should be, and maybe some of the talent, whatever they want to know. But not everybody really wants our input on that. They just want us to produce the event, which is totally fine. But other people are more interested in talking about it and seeing what our advice is. So whatever the client in this case, whatever their needs are, we try to fulfill them as best as possible.
What are the top 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give to one of your clients that you're working with to producing a jiu-jitsu event?
It all really depends. You know, we look at where they're coming from and what they want to accomplish. And one of the things might be, if it's a new promotion, it might be doing a lot more promotional stuff to get the word out, or even doing the first event for free so people can see what it is. Thankfully, you know, thanks to our long history of doing live events, people know it's going to be a stable stream. There's always things that can go wrong between our computers and yours, but generally it's not a problem on our end. It's just something in between us. But so you know, people know the stream is going to be good if it's on budovideos.com. But pricing is probably one of the main things, and whether it should be free or not. Those are probably the main things we discuss.
And along the lines of putting on an event, there's different revenue streams as far as the broadcast revenues. I paid numerous times purchase streams from Budo Videos for IBJJF Worlds and the last EBI. There's also sponsorships, different advertising, whether it be within the broadcast or physical signage on the mats or alongside the mats, and also just ticket sales for the events. Do you feel like that all the revenue streams are being maximized, and do you see if there or feel that there's any opportunities out there to grow the revenue from these various revenue streams right now?
Well, from all the producers I talk about, they all have this dream of reaching big companies, big sponsors like Gatorade or a beer company or something like that. And I certainly think that's possible, but so far no one has been able to make it happen. But when it does, that'll be really nice, because that's how a lot of the other events outside of jiu-jitsu make a big part of their revenue. But you know, I think the main thing is just growing the sport, continuing to grow the market. The more people watching, the more revenue, and for most of the events, that's going to be their main source of revenue directly from the viewers.
And just going back to EBI, how did you and Eddie, I know you guys had a long-standing relationship. Matter of fact, I still remember watching the podcast that you guys did with Sean Williams and Eddie where they discussed London versus Williamsguard. How did you guys become broadcast partners? Because he originally said that he wanted to try and get on Fox Sports Deportes and distribute the event in Latin America, but didn't work out. At what point did he decide to go through the online stream with you guys?
You know, a lot of people have opinions about Eddie, but from my point of view, he's a very loyal guy and a good friend. I've known him for so long. We sold his first documentary DVD that he made so many years ago. And I used to go up and train with him once in a while. So we've just known each other for a long time. Actually, he thanked me in the first page of his Twister book. So, you know, we just have that long history, and we he does have the dream of getting it on TV. I hope he realizes that dream at some point, but right now it's not quite there. So he just came to me and said, look, I want to get this online. I want to do this awesome event. You want to be part of it? And we said, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen some of the behind the scenes videos where you guys meet at the Orpheum Theater, which hosts the event. How much production goes into it? How many additional layers? Because from going to the live event there twice, I've seen just cameras hanging from all different angles, lighting. Is it much different than producing an IBJJF event?
Yeah, it's very different. In some ways easier, in some ways more difficult. An IBJJF event, if it's 12 mats, then you need to have 13 or 14 cameramen just to cover those mats, because for bathroom breaks and whatnot. And then you also got to realize that the Pans and the Worlds are 4 or 5 day events. So those are long days for people, and the cameramen have to be there before anybody else comes in and after everybody leaves. So yeah, very long days. They're both fun to do, but EBI is packed into one evening. We usually get there the day before and get everything set up. We have a crew of 10 to 14 people that are doing all the camera work and the commentary and the IT production, all that kind of stuff.
And do you guys select the commentators, similar to what you guys do for some of your events, or does Eddie handpick his own commentators for the event?
It's a case-by-case basis, but for EBI, those are Eddie's guys. They're all three. Well, actually, 2 of the 3 are 10th Planet guys, and the third one, TJ, is not, but he's a professional commentator. So those are guys that Eddie handpicked. Yeah,
and I've seen you guys price various different streams at different prices. What made you guys decide to choose a $19.99 price point for the EBI?
Eddie and I just talked about it, and he felt that was the appropriate price. I think the earlier ones, maybe EBI 3, was $14.95, just to get people a little more interested. But I think that's a very fair price, especially when you consider that how much a UFC goes for. I haven't watched one in quite a while, but I think they're like $60 or something like that. So I think it's a very fair price.
And with many of your events, you wind up having it on demand on your site afterwards. We're also releasing the DVD version of it. Eddie just gives the event away for free after 3 months on YouTube. Have you discussed the logic of that with Eddie? It seems very generous on his part to do that.
Yeah, it is. We haven't discussed it, but it's his event, so whatever he wants to do is totally fine. I think his line of thinking is that if it's out there for free, more people will watch it, and more people will be interested for the next one. And it's all about building up that viewer base to be able to attract larger sponsors and get on TV at some point in the future.
And it seems like everything is going in line. We're on the right path for him in the event, especially since he partnered with you. I've noticed that the purse has grown tremendously to $20K. Would you say that the partnership, without going into details, has been pretty fruitful for both you guys?
Absolutely. Eddie's a great guy to work with. No issues whatsoever. And yeah, I think it's definitely a win-win.
And when I first went to the original event, which Gary Tonin won, where he beat Richie Martinez, and then Gio Martinez beat Jeff Glover, I was blown away because that same day was the same day as Black Belt Sunday at Worlds, and I spent that Saturday down in Long Beach at the Pyramid watching a number of matches. Then, just because we've trained with Gary Tonin in the past, decided to go over and support him at the EBI event in Hollywood, and it was almost like we took acid as we left the Pyramid and went to EBI. It was just seemed like this counterculture movement of jiu-jitsu. What do you say is the biggest contrast in working with Eddie versus working with more traditionalist jiu-jitsu promoters, and what's impressed you the most about his event overall?
Yeah, traditional is the word, and IBJJF has to do things in a conservative way. They represent jiu-jitsu as a whole, and I think they're doing a great job in that aspect. Eddie is more of an artist, and he's trying to show the art and beauty of jiu-jitsu in his own way. And I think it's wonderful. It's great to have these different groups showing jiu-jitsu in their own way. Jiu-jitsu is a very broad art and it is an art. And art means you should be able to express yourself. And I think that's amazing. Now, as far as what has impressed me the most, a couple things. One thing is how fast-paced Eddie wants it to be. He's oftentimes told us like, hey, let's keep this moving. Let's not allow anything to hold up the production. Give the viewers what they want, which is match after match after match. So it's pretty fast paced. I like that. And also the rules. You know, we've talked about this a few times already, but the rules, to be honest, didn't make much sense when he explained them to me verbally. When I saw them play out, I thought, this is amazing. This is so rewarding and fulfilling, giving people what they want. Guys that have an amazing guard that never get their guard passed. When the match is reached to 10 minutes, it goes to overtime, and then they're defending a choke on the back. So you get to see people in positions that you wouldn't normally see, and you get to see the submission.
Yeah, and you're in both entrenched with EBI and also in the IBJJF world. With the $20,000 purse coming up on December 13th, how come Eddie and his team, Casey Halstead and his other producers, how come they haven't been able to track Cobrina, Gianni Grippo, the Mendez brothers, were other elite IBJJF world champions to compete in EBI rather, considering the purse and the exposure?
That's a good question. I think you'd have to ask those athletes that have been contacted why they didn't take him up on it. I know he did talk to Cobrina and a couple other high-level guys. Certainly the rule set is different. You know, you're going to have to prepare for that. I know Gary Tonin and Eddie Cummings have been training their arm locks and arm lock defenses to get ready for the overtime. So it is different. Also, as much as $20,000 might sound to us or to the jiu-jitsu community, for some guys, it might not be worth it. You know, they can go out and do a few seminars and make that much money. And just a couple years ago, I was eating with the Meow brothers, and I asked them, how much would I need to pay you, theoretically, to not compete at the Worlds? In other words, how much is that gold medal worth? And Paulo told me $5,000. So that shows that even though you don't get paid to get a world title, there is a big value to that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting take on that. And again, we're all looking forward to EBI on December 13th. Again, stream it through Budo videos for $19.99. Definitely worth it. 3 hours of fun. Some of the top stars: Gio Martinez, Eddie Cummings, Denny Propakos, name a few. It should be a fun event. Just want to touch base in our last few minutes because I want to promise you I'd get you off by a certain time. I just want to talk about the future Budo videos because we already harped on how you guys don't want to enter the promotion business and event production business as far as running your own jiu-jitsu promotion. But you guys have this extensive library of events and instructionals, and you're seeing the model shift a little bit and the distribution model shift. And do you ever see yourself shifting to a Netflix type model to distribute where people could buy membership and access some of your instructional videos that you have? Because you have one of the best libraries out there, if not the best.
Yeah, I don't see that happening right now. I think we follow more of iTunes format where you can buy them piece by piece. In our experience, that's what the community wants. Personally, I don't like any subscription models. I don't subscribe to hardly any services. I find that I'll forget to cancel something, or I'll try to cancel, and then the system won't cancel it. I prefer piecemeal purchases, and from our feedback, that's what the community prefers as well. We have so many different deals with the different companies that we work with that would be hard to put that in a subscription model. So, like I say, we're doing what we can to please the community, to please our customers, and that is giving things, giving media in the format that they want. So right now we have things available on demand, on iPhone apps, and some Google apps are available. And still DVDs, there's still a large percentage of our customer base that prefers physical media. So I think that's the way we're going to stick, at least for now. Yeah, we don't like putting things behind a subscription paywall, and as much as we can, we like to give out free content. This Week in BJJ and Rolled Up are free shows that we produce, and we've done a lot of free shows with the IBJJF in the past, and we hope to do more free content as well. We feel that's a great way to grow the sport.
And you guys have because 2 weeks ago rather, I spoke with Nelson Fuentes of Inverted Gear. You guys have a huge lineup of equipment, kimonos, and other jiu-jitsu related apparel. Um, how does one even get onto your website or get onto your radar to be distributed through Budo Videos? What's that process like for you guys to test out and meet with different kimonos and apparel and equipment makers?
Anybody out there who has a brand, feel free to contact customer service at budovideos.com and let us know what your brand is and what you're about. We'll definitely take a look at it and let you know either way. That being said, we get contacted every week by a new brand, and many of them are just cookie cutters, same old gi with a different logo put on it. And we like to support the brands that are doing something a little different and at least unique products. And so I think most of the gis that we carry do have that. We only carry high quality stuff. But I've heard of Inverted Gear, and I've heard some good reviews, so I'd be happy to talk to Nelson about that. But that being said, if you're not doing anything unique in the industry, then the answer is probably going to be no.
And what's a few tips on how to differentiate yourself or really stand out as far as the numerous pitches and inquiries you guys do receive? And first off, I want to say, Nelson, I was bringing Nelson up since he was a guest. He didn't say, hey, ask Budo Jake, how can we get on his site? But I just wanted to ask just because he had a very fascinating story about his methods of distribution and fulfillment. But just wanted to know, again, how a distributor or a supplier could stand out in your process.
There's so many factors, of course price is one of the factors, so there has to be a margin in there, but also it has to be something that we're happy and excited to sell. So, what does your brand stand for? If you can't answer that, then the answer is probably going to be no too. But, what's your brand name mean? What's your background? Who are some of the athletes that you're supporting? What's unique about your product? Is there any unique design elements? All those things are factors that we look at. And then if it's a product line of one or two products, that's probably not going to be too interesting for us. It has to have a few different SKUs and some plans for the future to make the line more broad. Those are some of the factors.
Awesome. And we've talked a lot about where you've been, where you are now, and where you're going. What should we anticipate from Budo Videos in 2016?
There's more great content. We have a number of instructionals lined up. One that we just filmed last week is going to be great. It's from Philippe de la Monica, who teaches at Gracie Baja headquarters where I train. It's all about the reverse half guard, which is a position that not many people understand. Most are uncomfortable in it, but Philippe is a master of that position. He shows 33 different ways to sweep and submit from there. So I've learned so much from him, and I know that's going to please a lot of people out there, especially if you like half guard. And whether you like it or not, a lot of us end up in half guard. So that's going to be a fun one. Reverse half guard by Philippe de la Monica. Will probably be out in January. And quite a few more instructionals coming thereafter. In terms of live events, it's whichever ones come along. Of course, we're going to continue helping out Eddie Bravo on his, and hopefully some many more exciting events in 2016.
Will you be going down to Mexico for his open weight tournament, EBI, I think, Mexico City?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Looking forward to that.
Great. And just because with the holiday season coming up, is there anything you want to pitch as far as things we should look out for on your website, instructional videos, or apparel, or anything that you're doing for the upcoming holiday season, or you want to pitch right now?
Yeah, just say if you're not a subscriber to the Budo Videos newsletter, now is a good time to be, or at least follow me on Instagram, Budo Jake on Instagram or Twitter. There'll be some Black Friday sales and some other good stuff happening throughout the end of November and December.
All right, and how do they sign up for your newsletter, sir?
Just go to budovideos.com, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see a newsletter link. It's right there.
And what's your Instagram and Twitter handles, just so people could sign up and grow your base a little bit and get in on some great deals?
Yep, that's Budo Jake, BUDOJAKE, at Instagram or Twitter.
Well, thank you very much, Jake. I really appreciate your time and your insight into the world of jiu-jitsu and where you see the entire business growing. Really appreciate you got to come up to 5-Star Martial Arts and work out with us sometime, whether by the end of the year or within a new year. Appreciate everything you've done for us in the business and for the jiu-jitsu community. Take care and have a great Thanksgiving and happy holiday season.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I enjoyed your questions. You had a lot of unique questions here tonight. And man, you train at an awesome gym. 5-Star Martial Arts. If you're in the LA area, check Sean Williams out. You definitely won't regret it. Thanks again for having me on, Jerry.
Thank you, Jake.